Okay, so you want to hear my story?
I would love to hear your story.
Okay, so before I start, I would like to just say that this is not a hate to the Walmart pickup service, okay? Because it really does me a lot of goodness to have that, and it makes my life easier. So I just want everybody to know that I'm not hating on the Walmart service, okay? I just need to say that out loud. But what occurred was I was putting my grocery order in, and I had asked for a bundle of bananas. Okay, you know, when you go to the store, they're all together. You know, you just pick them. There's like 6 or 7 or 8 all in a bundle of bananas. Okay, so I went to get my groceries, and when I came home today, instead of my bundle of bananas, I had one banana, a singular banana, in one of those like clear packages that you would put like, onions or something in. I just had one.
Yeah.
And I was only charged for one, but I have never seen just at the grocery store where you can buy a singular banana. I've only seen that at like Holiday Inn for like the breakfast food. So I'm really confused at like where that is at in the store.
Okay, wait, I think I know what happened. I really think I know what happened here. Because we use Walmart delivery. It's like my jam. Like I use it every single week. It's the best purchase I've ever made in my life. My favorite subscription that I have.
Again, we're not hating on Walmart.
Seriously, I will probably have it for the rest of my life, especially with a young child, until he's like old enough to where I need to teach him how to, like, this is how you grocery shop, because clearly he needs to learn that. But okay, so when you purchase, like, you search banana and it comes up and you see the little like quantity, what did you click?
One, because it was a bundle.
I think that's your problem, because I get like 5 or 6 a week, and I literally do, like, I change the quantity to 5, and then I do get a bundle of 5 bananas. But I think you literally asked for one
a
singular banana.
What?
But I agree that just purchasing one singular banana is not exactly the most like common thing, for sure, especially in like Walmart,
Yeah, but I was just like, I literally, it took me back to like a middle school trip for band when we went to the Holiday Inn breakfast.
Oh my gosh, and you just saw one banana. I thought that was hilarious.
Where they're like, they have the bowl of fruit and they have like a bunch of oranges and apples, and then they have
and then there's like the sole
singular banana that nobody really wanted.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. That's hilarious. I'm like, no, I think so. Next time. I know, but like, hear me out.
What if they give me 25 bananas if I hit 5?
No. I hear you though, because really what the issue is, and I have felt this too with Walmart delivery, is that the picture doesn't always match what you're actually getting.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like for the bananas, it's a picture of a bundle of bananas, but really you're just getting a singular, like you're getting exactly the quantity of bananas that you ask for. Mm-hmm. Which has been my experience, and I assume will be your experience. But you know what? It could also depend on the shopper. I don't know. I really don't know. But
I don't know.
I needed, and I might have shown you this when you were at our house earlier this year or this summer. I needed like a refill of parsley or something, like a spice.
Yes,
and I just needed like, y'all, this is hysterical. I just needed like a little, I don't know, what is that? Like 3 ounces, or 3 fluid ounces, or just a little, small, a little spice thing. I don't know what that is. Little spice container. And I did not realize I got like an 8 fluid ounce. It's massive. It is ginormous. But the picture of it looked, I couldn't tell scale on the picture. It looked exactly like what I needed. I just didn't realize that it was massive. And so then I got my groceries delivered and I was unpacking them and I was like, oh my word, this is the size of my head. Like, this is huge.
You needed one Spice Girl and you got 4.
Literally, like, this is not the tiny little, like, spice that I needed. This is, like, the mom of all spices. And we're never going to run out of parsley. I don't know when it expires, but there's no way I'm ever going to use them. But I feel you. I have that problem all the time. Because I'm not regularly checking, like, how many ounces are in this.
So anyway, that was my banana story. We love you, Walmart. Thank you for your service.
Okay, so last week we talked about the idols of control, and this week we're going to move into looking at idols of comfort. And I think that this topic is going to be very relatable I know for me and for Claire, and I assume for those listening as well, because we love to be comfortable. It is our jam. It is what our culture loves. We love comfort, and we all have an expectation of what comfort looks like or feels like, and that we should have it. We feel entitled to comfort a little bit. And so I want us to consider during this episode, what would happen if we felt like our comfort was challenged or taken away from us? How would we react to that? How would we respond if we were put in a situation where we did not have these comforts that maybe we take for granted sometimes, or that maybe we put a little too much value in? Where would we find ourselves? Where would we fall? Because realistically, in some way or another, our comfort is going to be challenged on a somewhat regular basis, considering what we know about the world we live in and about what Jesus told us about the world we live in. In John 16:33, he told us, in this world, you will have trouble. And a lot of times that trouble equals we're not comfortable in that situation, whether it means living situations, jobs, having financial security, clothing, in anything, name it, a comfort. And trouble in this world could relate to that comfort being taken away. Even if it comes to comfort that we find in friends and family members, we're not promised that. We will have trouble in various different ways. And again, I think a lot of times that trouble is targeting our comforts. Another verse that we can look at too is Matthew 16:24, where Jesus is talking and he says, like, deny yourself and follow me, like take up your cross daily, deny yourself and follow me. That is a direct call for us to lay down our comforts. If we read that story, and when Jesus said that, he was telling the disciples to leave what they were used to, their comfort, their security, to leave it and follow him, which was unknown and maybe a little bit of uncomfort. So from day one, we know that is part of what we've been called to, yet we still find ourselves clinging to these comforts. And I've told y'all this story before of a conversation that I had with someone in Guatemala. And I'm not going to tell like the whole story now, but just a quick summary, I guess. And for you to just, I don't know, recall this story is that I was on a mission trip in Guatemala and we went to the local city dump. So just where all the trash in the city went in Guatemala City. And we were handing out shoes and food and just different necessities, different basic comforts that we tend to take for granted that these people did not have. They didn't have homes. They had very little. They had nothing. And we came across a woman who did not have shoes on. She had young children with her and we were trying to give her shoes. We were trying to give her food and she would not take it. She would not take it. And we tried over and over again to like, please, we have enough for you. Like, we want you to take this. This is for you too. And she was like, no, like I have everything I need. I have everything I need in Jesus. I don't have a single need that's not met because of my faith in him. Please give it to someone else who needs it more than me so that maybe they can encounter Jesus through what you're doing. And I think about that all the time. And I should think about it more and apply that to my life more. But like, if I were in that position, would I react the same way? Would I be that bold to say, I actually don't have everything I need, but I do. Like physically, it might appear that my needs aren't met, but because spiritually all my needs are met, I don't have a single need. That just astonishes me. And I am so thankful that I was able to meet that lady and hear her faith and to just constantly have that as a reminder. Brian and I talk about it all the time. I think we will talk about it. That'll be our like grandma and grandpa story one day when we're old. Like we will never forget that. But I think that is kind of the heart a little bit of what we want to talk about today is in the face of all of our comforts, how much are we willing to cling to them despite other things? And if we look at it and if we say, you know, under this lens of, I will follow the Lord as long as I have blank, 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 Or do we more look at it as, I will follow the Lord no matter what? No matter what. No clauses, no commas, nothing else added in. If we just look at it, the bottom line of no matter what, I will deny myself and follow you. Can we do that? Are we at a place where we can say that? Or are there things blocking us from being able to say that we need to look at? Because if there is something between our ability to say that and where we are now, then that means we probably have some idols in place. And I would be willing to bet that they're probably an idol of comfort. So it's going to be a interesting and probably challenging conversation today to just look at some of the things that might cause that disconnect.
I think for one, materialism or wealth is very relatable in the sense of, well, if I'm uncomfortable, then I can just buy something and like make myself feel better. Like it's a very temporary fix. Like it's just, if I'm feeling sad or if I'm feeling uncomfortable or if I just don't like the way that I'm feeling, then I can easily just buy something or do something to change that. And so I personally find Matthew 6 very convicting with this topic of materialism. And that's really where I want us to start. So we're going to look at Matthew 6, 19 through 24. So it says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve two masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." So that's a lot, but I think that there are like three main things that Jesus is talking to us in this scripture, because this is one of the sections in the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus is giving this big sermon. He's telling all these different stories and topics and discussing a lot of truths that can sometimes seem complicated, but are actually very, very simple. So I want to kind of go over three of the things that I felt like were very relatable on this topic, but also three things that he's trying to teach us. I think Jesus is telling us that laying up our treasures in heaven is a way better deal than laying them up on earth. And he's telling us that what is on the earth, it can be easily taken away, that they are temporary things, that they don't really have any real value. And we also can see that in Matthew 24, verse 35, where it says, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." And I think that's just a reminder to us that like so many things on this earth are temporary. Almost everything is. And then it's like we can kind of focus in on the now so much to where things don't feel temporary, or they don't feel like they will be taken away from us because it's concrete or it's in front of us or it's like right here. But we have to remind ourselves that like we need to set our eyes on things above and like not on things that are on the earth, and to have that eternal perspective.
Everything you just said absolutely reminds me of what King Solomon is trying to tell us in Ecclesiastes. Because, you know, over and over again, he just says, like, I have trod everything under the sun. I have bought everything there is to buy. I have experienced everything that there is to experience, which is just honestly unfathomable to me, to be like, wow, okay, like you really had that. He had that much access to wealth and like just possessions that he's able to say, I've bought it all, I've done it all. And he still says everything's futile, like or futile, however you say that. You know, everything, nothing matters. There's no real value to it. What matters the most is pursuing the Lord and spreading the gospel and truth. Truth is what matters. None of this other stuff matters. As flashy as it may be, as tempting as it may be, none of it matters. And that's just, I feel like these verses are very compatible with what, I mean, obviously they're compatible, but like they're very reminiscent of each other, you know, and just this main message of what we're trying to communicate here with materialism and wealth. I think Ecclesiastes does a great job of showing that point too.
Yeah, I think so. And I like how you brought it up of just how Solomon had everything he wanted, you know, as far as materialism and things on the earth. The second point that I wanted to make with this was our eyes can be either the door to light or the door to darkness for our entire body. And so kind of with that verse, I think it also ties back into 1 John 1, where it says, This is the message we have heard from him and proclaimed to you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say we have fellowship with him while we walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his son, cleanses us from all sin. And so kind of in Matthew 6, it's talking about what we fix our eyes on and what we fix our minds on, that can start to fuel in us either that light or that darkness. And so we don't only have to walk in the light, but we also have to keep our eyes on that light too. And that light goes back to Jesus. And I think that that's really something that we need to be reminded of daily and pursue daily, because it seems so easy for humans to be so fickle. And then the last point that I wanted to make with this was at the very end, it talks about having two masters, like serving God or serving money. And in 1 Timothy 6, it tells us that for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. So it's not saying that money itself is the evil. It's just saying that the love of money is where that evil is coming from. And so money in itself is not bad, just like so many other things that we're going to talk about today. Like lots of things are not bad, but it's like when we're placing that over the Lord and like we're misplacing that worship, then it becomes evil. So kind of looking at all of that, I know that that can kind of be a lot, and it's a lot of, well, we need to be doing this or we need to be doing that. But with it, I think it's good to just also assess within our own lives, like where do we see materialism or wealth becoming an issue for us?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big question. And honestly, I think it's probably an easy question because I think it's probably more obvious than maybe some of the other things that we've talked about in the series, or that like we will talk about, because I feel like the way we spend our money is really easy to see and like track to an extent. Like, I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's easy for you to just like, oh, I have no idea. Like, I don't really know where I spent my money or whatever. But I think sometimes it can be a more obvious thing for us to see. And because I think a lot of us probably budget and like we're able to see those things, you know, so there's really so many different directions that we could take this. But I think one that maybe a lot of people and women especially maybe can relate to, especially with what we're going to look at next. Because just to give you a sneak peek of where we're headed is we're going to screens and technology, which basically means social media. So that's where we're headed. So if we have that kind of in our trajectory, we know where we're going, then the first conversation that we need to have is like comparison, right? We're looking at what do other people have that I might want, or, and honestly, I think that's kind of like a, what do other people have that I might want? When we hear that sentence, it sounds a little like, ooh, like that doesn't sound great. But I don't, again, what Claire was saying, like money isn't bad. I think seeing what someone else has going for them and thinking to yourself, ooh, I want that for myself. I don't think that thought in itself is bad. Like, I think we can have inspiration from other people. I think we can say, and I think that can look like lots of different things. We can say, I love the routine she has. I want that for myself. I love the way her home looks like. I want to draw inspiration. I love her style. I want to shop her links. I love her skincare routine. I want to, you know, use the same products. Like, I don't think that thought alone is inherently bad. But where it becomes a problem is when we fall victim to the link every single time it's shared. And I wonder if people can relate to this, because I know I can, especially like approaching the holidays. There are certain influencers or people that I love to follow that I really do consider friends. I love their style. I love their home. We like, you know, I just love drawing inspiration from them. So whenever they share a link of something that they just bought in their home, I have to be very guarded when I view their content, because otherwise I will have 5 boxes delivered to my house that I had no business buying just because they got it and I like how it looks in their home or whatever. And I think a lot of us can fall victim to that. Now, I'm not saying that in itself is idolatry, but when we feel powerless against something, and when like we don't even think about it at all, we don't consider any budgets we've had in place, you know, when we just kind of like throw all the rules out and we're like, whatever is going to happen, like I'm getting it just because this person posted it or because I want it, or, you know, however that may look, I think that's when we kind of have to stop and pause and consider, well, why did I do that? Why am I why am I doing this? And I think another way for me is like, I love buying things for my home. I love doing projects in our home. Brian and I love doing that together. We'll pick a room, we'll make it better, we'll make little improvements to it, and we'll do that together. That is something that brings us joy. It's not something that we obsess over. We try to always do it in a way that is very like fits into our family very well. But there have been a couple instances where I have had to really check myself and say, am I doing this project in our home or buying this piece of furniture for our home, whatever it may look like, because we need it and it fits a need and we, you know, there's a specific purpose it's going to serve, and Brian and I love it and want it in our home? Or is my motivation to do this because I think other people will like it? And I want that approval of what other people might have to say about my home and the type of home that I have or the type of home that I'm curating. Do I just want that approval, or do I actually need it and want it for myself? Do I even like it? Am I pleased with it? I think that applies for me, my home, but it could also be the clothes you buy. I mean, literally anything, the food you eat, that concept could make sense or apply to multiple different things, you know?
I think too, what you were saying about coming back to that why, like, why are we doing this? And really checking that in, not just, so it could be something that you do together, but also just like you personally, like, why am I wanting to start this project? Why am I wanting to buy this? What am I trying to do this for? Am I wanting to wear this because I want so-and-so to notice me? Or like, am I wearing this so that I can fit in better? Like, or am I buying this so that it can actually be a tool that helps me better in my life? Like, I think sometimes looking at that obsessiveness almost of like, how much time, how much energy am I really focusing in on this? And I think we talked about that a little bit last week, as far as how you view your time and your money and where all that falls within idolatry. So going back to what we were talking about in Matthew 6 of having our eyes like a door of, you know, what are we setting our minds on? What are we setting our eyes on? And as Savannah mentioned, we're going to talk about screens and technology, and how for a lot of us, social media is just part of our everyday life. You know, it's how we stay connected with people. It may be something that you use for work. We use it for the podcast. And so it is something that is a tangible item that is helpful and useful and definitely can bring us in community with other people. I think sometimes for me personally, where social media can become kind of this temptation is when I'm using it for that comfort of either distress or boredom. I'm using it for entertainment in the sense of like trying to look at like inspiration of like what other people are doing, or trying to just have a good laugh on TikTok. Like just there's different areas that we can use it for. Sometimes, you know, when I'm tired, I get on there because I'm wanting it to give me a little bit of energy. So I think noticing those patterns of when we are using it and trying to maybe kind of reassess like our time and our habits of like when we are using it. I think another part of it can come into that play where it may make us feel disconnected if we're not on social media. I know the times when I have either fasted from social media or just been off of it, that it is kind of a hard patch at first because you do feel like you are missing out on some things. But I also learned a lot of just, you know, my close friends know that I'm not on it. So if they need to tell me something or if they want to send something to me, then they have my phone number. They can contact me in that way. So I definitely think noticing those patterns too of like when you need to take a break and get off of it. So we talked about what happens when we're not on it. We can feel disconnected. But then it's like when we are on it, what does that cause? And I think going back to that comparison of that can really get us into that mental rut of we want to look at things and we want to have that inspiration of, oh, I see this person, or I want to cheer them on, or I want to be inspired and have creativity. But I think sometimes too, the amount of which we do that, how much we're looking at it, can then start to lead to insecurities that we have of ourselves of like, oh, well, her routine is way much better than mine, or like her, you know, consistency or disciplined, you know, starting to have those comparisons too, like those thoughts, that's really where it can start to drain us, I think. And we don't really even notice it when we're scrolling. You know, they call it like doom scrolling now. Like we don't really even notice the doom scrolling anymore.
Seriously. I mean, it's such a balance, right? Like, because there's obviously pros to not being on it, and there's pros to being on it, but then there's cons maybe to not being on it and then being on it. Like I said that in the most complicated way ever. There's pros and cons to each is literally what I should have said.
I think this can go too for like TV as well, you know, like watching shows, kind of viewing those things, movies, different things like that. It can also go for the same as well.
Yes, absolutely. Because I mean, I think we have to look at our quantity. Like, I think if we're talking about this as a balance, the number one place for us to start is how much are we actually intaking? If we look at like our screen report each week and we're like, wow, did I really spend 3 hours a day on social media or 3+ hours, you know, whatever it is for each individual person, that can be a very alarming number. Yeah. And then when you look at, you know, your Netflix library and you're like, oh, cool, I just started this show a month ago and I'm already on season 5 or whatever. If we realize and I realize, because I'm one of those people, I turn a show on in the back while I'm working because I like the noise. I get that that's not always like a great measurement tool to go by, with the context of your eyes are a lens, you know, and projecting light or darkness, what you're putting in, where you're looking, what you're intaking is going to impact what you output. Then it matters. Even if it is background noise, we're still receiving that into our minds, you know? So we have to consider it. But starting there with where am I even at? How much am I even intaking? So then you ask that question. And then if you also find yourself saying, like, if idolatry is putting this above the Lord, misplacing that worship, so worshiping this instead of the Lord, then I think where this becomes an issue is probably going to be convicting to all of us, is if we find ourselves saying, I don't have time for XYZ that's going to glorify the Lord, whether that's reading our Bibles, praying, or physically being in community and Bible study with others and interacting with others and, you know, spreading the gospel and just being kingdom minded out in our actual communities. Then if we say we don't have time for that, but our screen report each day tells us we're spending 3, 4, 5 hours a day on our phone, then what that is telling us is that you do have time. You're just putting it towards your phone, towards doom scrolling, towards whatever it is that you're intaking. I realize that can add up really fast. I'm aware that it's probably not 5 consecutive hours where you're looking at your phone, and that it's probably just little pockets here and there. Yeah. But what I hope you see, and what that screen report has helped me see, is that those little pockets of time add up. And then if I were using those pockets of time to do anything else, I would have 3 extra hours of my day where I did something more productive than like looking at my phone. You know, like that's just a very convicting statistic that we all have access to on our phones to see. And then again, with the same thing we are talking about with like materialism and like feeling powerless to certain things, do we feel powerless to our phones? Do we feel like they are in control of us? My phone beckons to me, pick me up. And we have to. It has to be in our hand. It has to be in our pocket. It has to be right next to us when we go to bed. Why do we feel so powerless to it? Why is this such a like cultural thing that like we are so obsessed with our phones? I think that sheds light on an issue. And there's a podcast that Claire sent to me, because we've had this screen time conversation for a while, because it's something that we all struggle with. I am not immune to this. I know Claire is not immune to this. This is a problem we all have. And it's an important conversation to have in this time that we're in. But Claire sent me a podcast from Truth Talks with Tara. And it's a podcast called How to Steward Your Phone Well. And it is a fabulous conversation about like why our phones are good. It's not bashing our phones. It's not saying throw your phone away and never use it. Our phones are an absolute, like they're a gift. This is an amazing resource we have.
Our phones are a tool for us, you know, like it's not using us, we're using it. And so it's like, how can we apply our phones to be making us more productive and more connected, and not in a negative way, but in like that positive way. And so it's a really, really good episode on just understanding that your phone is a tool and how you can use it.
We're definitely going to link to that episode in our show notes so that y'all can go back and give that a listen. And I think it was a pretty quick and easy episode to listen to. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, we really hope that you go listen to it, because it was definitely helpful to both of us.
Yes. And I think going off of this topic of social media, for me, that can kind of lead into that comparison of body image. I think there are many questions that we can ask ourselves with body image, of like how to assess, how we're doing. But I think the main one is to ask, like, why, and I think that could be for, why am I working out in the ways that I'm working out? Why am I exercising in the ways that I am? Why am I wanting to eat these certain foods versus other foods? I think just really assessing your why when it comes to body image, of like, even why am I having these thoughts, or like, why am I comparing myself to this person? Because I think once we can figure out that why, then we can start to assess more of the what and how we do this. Like, what habits am I wanting to implement into my life? How do I start actually doing that? Because if our why isn't aligned with the gospel, in the sense of our body is a temple, if it's not aligned with that value, and that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, in the sense of we need to take care of our bodies, and we need to also take care of our minds, and we need to take care of ourselves and speak kindly to ourselves, in the sense that our identity is in Christ. If we don't start with that root, we can get pulled in so many different worldly views of our bodies, to the point where we can damage our bodies, we can hurt ourselves, and we can just damage our minds too with that. Yeah. We've talked about this in our Mind, Body, Soul series, but I think this can kind of go off of that social media part too.
Yeah, because I think like body image is obviously how you perceive your own body, but so much of that is like mental. It's a mental, the way that you talk to yourself, because I love what you were saying about like, if we don't check our why against like our actual actions and like the narrative that we're saying in our head, all I could think of is, I know a lot of people, and like I've struggled this before in my past, is like I will be worth it, and I will be fearfully and wonderfully made once I get to this goal, instead of approaching it with, no, like I am right now, in how I am right now, in my quote before picture or whatever, in my progress that I am right now, I am still those things. And because of that, from the overflow of that, I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to have that view on it, instead of being mean to ourselves and saying, and like almost punishing ourselves with that, and saying, I'm not right now, but I will be when I achieve whatever goal. That's probably once we achieve that goal, because it wasn't founded on goodness, we probably still won't feel, that satisfaction. Yes. I was like, what is that word? That satisfaction. Once we get there, we'll probably still feel a little discontent, because we're not mentally in the place where we needed to be to begin with.
It goes back to, as well, as far as talking about the temporary, of once I reach this, then it's not fully satisfying me, so I have to continue to do this or this, and like keep almost like climbing up the ladder, like having that feeling too. And so I think breaking it down more to, our bodies, in the sense of like comfort, our bodies, we have body, I think we have body image, that mindset of our body image every day, at least for a woman, like definitely just every single day, because you're thinking about what I'm eating, what I'm wearing, like how I'm feeling, what I'm doing to exercise or to just find some movement in the day or the week. And so I think it is just popping up a lot in our everyday. And so when we're having those thoughts of either negative body image or just feeling like the devil is just telling us lies, how can we combat that to the point where body image doesn't start to become this idol of, well, I have to watch every single thing that I eat, or I have to watch every single thing that I do, or I have to do all these different types of workouts. Because it really can become that. Like it can be this almost addiction of mentality that we get stuck in. And so it's like, how instead can I come back to what my body was originally created for? How can I take care of it? And how can I also just find gratitude in what my body can do, and also like what the Lord's given me purpose with it to do,
Yeah. And something else that you just said, I think ties truly is like the heartbeat of this whole series on idolatry is when we were talking about, once you reach a goal and then you're not satisfied and then you're like, oh, well, I've got to set another one. And then like we keep chasing that. What's the name of our series for idolatry? A worthless pursuit. That's what that is, chasing satisfaction, because you're not going to get it from these idols that we're talking about in these episodes. You're going to constantly chase it and always feel like you're falling short.
Yes, like just tying it back to there could always be something more that we could achieve, or there could be always something more that we want. And again, that void, that temporary, it's never enough sort of thing, and that control, or that, going back to control, but also just that comfort of having something for a short period of time and then it feeling uncomfortable again. And then we have to have something else. And so when we, go back to fixing our eyes on what's eternal, how that's more long-lasting than anything else is. So we can find our comfort in that and have that peace, because the Lord is always a giver of peace. And I think having that understanding of, if I can pause for a moment in this uncomfortability, and if I just take a breath and notice his presence, then I can come back to that peace. Hey, podcast fam. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode today. I hope that it was encouraging and uplifting to your week. We just love to connect with you guys. So if you haven't already, give us a follow on Instagram at On Purpose Podcast. It is a great way for us to hear from you and for us to just share a little bit of different things around these topics and discussions to continue those conversations online. We also would love for you to leave us a review sometime if you have a chance. This is a great way for us to hear a little bit about what you think of the podcast, and also any sort of topics you want us to discuss in the future. We just love being able to connect with you guys on many different platforms. So with that being said, I hope that y'all have a great rest of your week, and that you'll tune in with us next Monday to learn more about how to live on purpose and for a purpose.